Hi, welcome to Lessons with Cameron. In this video, I'm taking a look at the Ibanez PIA in Onyx Black. Now, I waited a few months after receiving the instrument to really give it a kind of real review after spending time with it, rather than just kind of whipping it out of the box and giving you my first impressions, because once I opened the case, it caught my breath and I just had to go deeper into it before I went in and tried to give it a review. So here's the quick lowdown on it. I did come out of the box with the action a little higher than I like, so I went ahead and did a setup on it and got it to where it's kind of low and fiery, and I don't know if we're going to be able to pick that up, but looks, it's got pretty low action. It's not the lowest I've ever had or seen, but it's pretty darn low, and it kind of plays itself in that respect. I do have a couple of kind of the older Ibanez RGs here. This is a 89 RG 550. I've got a RG 750 there from 1990. So I've spent a lot of time with these speed machines, essentially, and a couple things I noticed compared to that guitar. So if you're used to kind of a vintage RG 5 or 7 series, there's some similarities, and then there are also some notable differences. At the end of the day, though, I will, spoiler alert, it's a great guitar. So here's a couple things I noticed. The neck is extremely thin on the PIA, but it is not quite as thin as an original Wizard. It's really close. I think it's like 1 millimeter difference. It's almost imperceptible, but not if you've spent a lot of time with an original Wizard in your hands. One of them, probably the most interesting things about this guy, is that it does go with the 5-ply neck. So we got 5 pieces here, all kind of sandwiched together to give us more rigidity. It does still have the vampire bites on the back, which is kind of cool because that's what I'm used to, even though I know that tends to be a weak spot. There is a volute here on the neck that helps kind of get around that weak spot, so to speak. We've got Goto tuners all the way up. These are fantastic tuners. They have so far been spot on this guitar. I almost never have to tune it. On the front side, we've got, of course, the cool little PIA logo, the Ibanez in gold with the gem, or with the golden check mark. Got a little bar here to increase that tension. We've got the locking nut. And then as we move on to the neck, the thickness of the rosewood is pretty significant. It's hard to say if that's any thicker than the 750, for example. It's obviously not the same as the 550, but that's got a maple neck. The inlays are pretty gorgeous. You'll notice some of these inlays are gold, and then some of them have the PIA shape logo for the the P, essentially, in abalone. So there's a variety of materials going on the neck, and it's pretty cool. Also, this would be my first guitar that I've owned that had a scalloped fretboard at all. So even though it's only the 4 frets here, I have noticed that when I get to the upper frets, they're a lot more playable than an unscalloped neck. The pickups themselves, there's 3 of them here, of course, 2 humbuckers and a single coil. I don't much care for the single coil and the HSH combination, so you may be able to tell that I've lowered mine pretty much flush with the pick guard, almost. Just to get it out of the way, because that's where I tend to pick, and I really don't want to just chew up my pickup with my pick. We've also got the original Edge tremolo, which I'm incredibly used to, and I'm super glad that it's here because I struggle to get along with Floyd Rose style tremolos or floating tremolos, and this one is the same exact one I have on all of my Ibanez's, and it has been bang on since day one. Once I got the balance set up and the height the way I wanted it, it has just stayed in tune, with the exception of, the expected string stretching of a brand new guitar. It's got some cool little covers on the knobs, just a nice little touch, nothing too terribly fancy, but it is a nice touch. One of the things I noticed, not right away with the guitar, because I didn't, who reads the instruction manual, but one of the things I didn't notice right away was there is a pull-push pot here, and this is a high-pass filter, which I noticed when I'm playing leads. I really prefer the clarity, and when I'm playing rhythms, I sometimes forget to turn it off, but I get a little bit more bottom end, very, very little. I think everything happens in small doses with this guitar, so while it does sound great and play great, it's not really easy to get off the rails. In traditional gem fashion, we have the output jack mounted on the side of the guitar in an upward fashion to help you kind of lock it in with your strap. Got big old strap buttons. They are not locking of any kind, but that would be an easy swap if you really wanted to go that route. The first thing I noticed different here than RGs and gems specifically is that the edges are a little bit softer, so if you've never held a PIA in your hands or had a chance to really see one close up, it does have the same body shape but with softened or rounded edges, and it does make itself for a pretty comfortable guitar. And of course the PIA cutouts with a little indentation here and a little indentation in the back where you're supposed to, I guess, hold on to it. One of the other things you'll notice is a little bit different is there is a carve here that is not present on the older RGs, and the tip on the bottom is a little sharper. It's just sharper. I don't know how to describe it, but it comes to a much finer point ultimately. We also have an AA and J neck, and a 4-bolt pattern, which is going to be a lot more stable. Now this is the first Ibanez I've ever had with this neck, because I've always traditionally played more vintage Ibanezes, I guess, vintage late 80s, early 90s. And then of course the magnetic spring cover, which is great if you find yourself adjusting your springs frequently, if you're trying to change strings a lot, if you're just experimenting with the guitar. It's really handy to be able to pull that off and put it back on in 2 seconds without having to turn 6 screws. So it's a wonderful design feature that I think every guitar should have, but they don't. Now once we get to the front of the guitar, we've got a rosewood fretboard. I'm pretty certain, based on looking at it, though I did forget to look that spec up, the alder body. And the fun fact about these PIAs, they come with 2 whammy bars. You get the standard metal, kind of heavy one that you could use for having a little bit more mass hanging off of your tremolo. And then you also get the carbon fiber arm as well, the UTA 20, which is a fantastic arm. It does reduce flutter just a little bit, especially if you start hammering the strings really hard, because one of the interesting things that I'll say about RGs is as you start to hammer them, they do start to pick up a little bit of flutter, which can make for a very cool sound if that's what you want, or it can make for a little obnoxious noise if that's not what you want. It turns out I'm a little back and forth. Sometimes I want it, sometimes I don't, so it is nice to have both arms. And of course the Ibanez multi-tool also comes included with this, and so far in my experience, just about every Prestige level guitar and above does come with that Ibanez multi-tool, which is what I used to do almost the complete setup on this one. And actually I did a setup on this one with that same tool as well. And it is a all-in-one solution to setting up your guitar. That said, they're pretty similar to my RG, my classic RG, but I will say it's more articulate. It's a little bit heavier, which is better. It does have a better sound though, and a better feel. There's a premium feel to the instrument. It does have the Prestige fret end treatment, so it has pretty well cut frets. I would say they're smooth and comfortable. They're not biting. They're not the roundest of frets that I've ever seen, but at the same time, you still want to have some of that, like I'm holding a piece of thing made by a guy type, feel to the instrument. So I wouldn't say it lacks perfection. I would just say it's a matter of personal preference on how rounded you really want them. I kind of like them the way they are. I never feel like they're too aggressive on my hands, but I never lose track of where they are, and I don't find myself sliding over the top of them. One of the things I also found really kind of interesting about this guitar is that it does come with stainless steel frets. Not what I expected, but thoroughly happy to have them. So I'm sitting down with the PIA in the clean settings on my amp, and I'm going to go ahead and run you through the humbuckers. Again, I have the single coil set down and out of the way because I just don't use that sound. If it were HH, that'd be fine, but I do like the look of it. This is the neck pickup. Go to the bridge. The bridge, of course, is a little more punchy. And back to the neck. Pull the high pass filter. bridge pickup. Right, let's go ahead and turn the gain back on and give a listen to the humbuckers with and without the switch pushed. I'm going to start on the bridge humbucker, and we're going to do, the switch is pushed in, so the pass filter is off in this particular position, and we're going to give it a bit of a listen. I'm going to go ahead and pull that switch. Now the filter is activated. Now we're going to switch to the neck position, filter off, and here's how it sounds. Now we're going to pull that filter and do the same thing. Let's do some single note stuff so we can hear what it sounds, how it is affected, or how it affects the notes in more of a solo type situation. So again, in the neck pickup, switch off. Activated. Now, off on the bridge pickup. And then with the switch pulled. Ultimately, my take on that, on pulling this guy, is I kind of just pull it up and leave it up. It just does add a little bit of clarity for the most part. When I'm doing chords, especially power chords or chunking away at riffage, so to speak, I do prefer the sound of the filter off. But pretty much every other situation, especially when I'm playing at home by myself, more often than not, I'm practicing leads. So I'm got my switch pulled. But here's some riffage with the switch on and off. So off. Now with on, and the guitar. Off again. On again. So I think it's pretty easy to say, yeah, it sounds better with this, with the filter off for power chord type riffing. But for leads, it's pretty noticeable, at least from a player's perspective. I'm not 100% sure if I'm really hearing a huge difference from a listening perspective. But as far as the player goes, I can feel that difference of what that filter's doing. But it's a tiny little touch that I think is a really brilliant touch. When I found out, I kind of pulled on it by accident one time and it popped up and I thought, oh no, what did I just learn? I've always been a huge fan of the Gem for being a speed machine that you can do almost anything with, and for being built to that highest level of quality one would expect from a Japanese guitar. And I think the PIA lives up to the reputation that has been set forward over the past 35 years in the relationship between Steve Vai and Ibanez. I can't say how much I love this guitar because I don't know that words can express it. It instantly shot to one of my favorites in my collection very quickly, and I would probably, I don't foresee ever actually letting this one go. It's everything I would hope that the PIA was, which is fast, articulate, well-built, easy to play, and just great sounding. Even when I'm playing the simplest of riffs, it gives the biggest of sounds, and I think they knocked it out of the park. This could not be a better guitar. There's really nothing I could imagine that would enhance that playing experience from an Ibanez perspective. All in all, if you're fortunate enough to get your hands on an Ibanez PIA and take it home, I highly recommend it. The case is high quality, the guitar is out of this world, the accessories are well thought out, and they give you several options. If you like the way the guitar is set up out of the box, awesome, you can play it. If you don't, it comes with a tool capable of doing a full setup on this guitar. So there's very little to risk. If you know what you're doing with setups on a guitar, you've got everything right there at your fingertips to put it the way that you like it exactly. It does handle very low tolerances. I put this action really low and found that the guitar just lit right up, even though it came to me with a little bit higher action than I like on this style of guitar. All right, thanks for tuning in. That has been my take on the Ibanez Onyx Black PIA. It is a fantastic guitar, built to the highest specs. Everything about this guitar screams quality, and it plays and feels like a top-tier instrument. I would highly recommend grabbing yourself one if you can find one at your local Ibanez dealer. If not, I would definitely reach out to your local Ibanez dealer and think about pre-ordering it. The wait times on these guys is a little bit longer than one might hope for a guitar, but it's not out of the ordinary at this point in time for high-end guitars to be back-ordered for a long period of time. This one was back-ordered for a great deal of time, but it was worth the wait by the time it actually showed up. Again, thanks for tuning in. This has been Lessons with Cameron and our take on the Ibanez PIA Onyx Black.